All right, let's go ahead and open up the doors. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Q&A with Pharmacist Ben and myself, Becca Dukes. We are so excited to be able to bring you additional information that allows you to become an empowered individual with more knowledge and education to make choices that benefit your own health. And this evening we have with us Pharmacist Ben Fuchs, who has an amazing pedigree when it comes to making him very worthy of being on this show and sharing information. He is very humble, though, so he hates for me to say that. But folks, we just want to welcome you to Q&A with Pharmacist Ben. And if you were invited to watch this program by somebody specific, make sure that you get back with them. If not, I do have an amazing co-host or amazing phone team at 855-949-3377. Sorry about that. 855-949-3377. And this program is being sponsored by dailywithdoc.com. So without any further ado, we just want to say that we are happy to have you here with us. This program is for educational purposes only. And because he states it when I say the rest of what the FDA requires us to know, that this program is not meant to treat, diagnose, prevent, cure any diseases, I would like to turn this over and welcome to the screen with me, Pharmacist Ben Fuchs. Hello,
Yeah.
Ben, how are you?
Well, hi there. Am I on here? Can you hear me?
You
You're
are
right.
live.
I do hate when you say that. I know you have to, but I know you have to. I understand the legal, but what it does is it makes us, it really marginalizes our power to take care of ourselves. It says we don't have the ability to take care of ourselves. We're too stupid to do it. And I feel, my whole message is that we should be our own health authorities. And, I'm glad we're talking about DVT. We're going to talk about blood and DVT and clotting issues today. But what I'm going to really hope I emphasize, what I want to emphasize, and what I hope I get, what gets through to people is that this is really easy stuff. The body is a fluid dynamic system. Fluid dynamics is the movement of fluids. Specifically, the fluid is blood. So we say it's a hemodynamic system. It's based on the health of the body, the wellness of the body, the functionality of the body is based on how effectively fluids move. And when we say fluids, we're specifically talking about the blood and we're talking about the lymph. Those are the two major fluids. There's a few other fluid systems, but specifically we're talking about the blood for the most part. In the Bible, in Leviticus, it says the life of the body is in the blood. What does that mean? It means the blood is the sacred space. The blood is the major factor bodily factor when it comes to how healthy or how functional the body is going to be. I always say all disease is cell disease. That's something I say on the bright side. I say on my presentations, meaning that the nexus of health and wellness or disease occurs at the level of the livingness of the body. The livingness of the body is the cells. The body is made up like raisin bread, of cells and stuff, like raisins and bread. I know you guys have all heard me say this before. The body's made up of like raisin bread. It's got two compartments. It's got cells and stuff. The cells make the stuff. And in turn, the stuff feeds back to the cells. It's the stuff that feeds the cells. It's the stuff that detoxifies the cells. And it is the stuff that oxygenates the cells. So all disease is cell disease, and all cell disease is preceded by issues of toxicity, lack of oxygen, and the lack of nutrition. The only three things that can go wrong with the cell are starvation, suffocation, and toxification. So all disease is cell disease, but the cell is fed and oxygenated and detoxified by the stuff that surrounds the cells. The stuff that surrounds the cells is generally referred to as connective tissue. The connective tissue is the part of the body that feeds the cells, that oxygenates the cells, and that detoxifies the cells. And because all disease is cell disease caused by starvation, suffocation, and toxification, caused by issues with the connective tissue that is feeding and detoxifying and oxygenating the cells, you can see the connective tissue is very, very important. The blood is liquid connective tissue. The blood is actually tissue. It's liquid tissue. It's liquid connective tissue. So all disease is cell disease, but all cell disease is preceded by issues with the liquid connective tissue. The major issue with the liquid connective tissue, and I'm going to use those terms interchangeably, so we really get the idea. It's hard to really picture liquid connective tissue. When we think of tissue, we don't think of liquid, right? So you really got to get that into, we got to get that into our heads, that the blood is liquid tissue. Kind of cool when you think about it right there, right? It's liquid tissue. So all disease is cell disease, but all cell disease is preceded by issues of starvation, suffocation, detoxification, which involve liquid connective tissue, which involve the blood. So the reason the life of the body is in the blood is because when the blood is not functional, when the liquid connective tissue is not functional, the cells will starve, the cells will suffocate, and the cells will become toxic. They will die. We will get sick. So all sickness is related to defects in the cells, but all defects in the cells are the end result of what I call dirty blood. Dirty blood is connective tissue that is clogging, that is not moving. It's like a pipe, it's like water, it's like plumbing. It's like, just think of stagnated water in your plumbing system. The plumbing is not moving. The body, the fluid dynamic nature of the body is kind of like a plumbing system. And the blood and the heart, which pumps the blood, and all the vessels and the tubes are kind of like plumbing. And so when we're sick, it's a plumbing issue. And I'm saying that to be slightly facetious, but I really want to emphasize that because it's not complicated. If our plumbing is clogged up, our cells will not get fed, our cells will not get oxygenated, and our cells will not get detoxified, because it's the blood, the plumbing, that's delivering all those things. That's feeding, and that's oxygenating, and that is detoxifying. So then the question becomes, obviously, if this is so important, what causes the plumbing to clog? What is it that causes the blood to stop circulating as it should? That's the crux of the matter, is why is the blood not delivering oxygen? Why is it not delivering nutrients? Why is it not detoxifying? Why is it sludgy and sticky? All disease is cell disease, but all cell disease is preceded by dirty blood. What is it that causes the blood to become dirty? Well, first of all, let me just say, when the blood becomes dirty, and I'm literally talking dirty, there's things that don't belong in the blood. I'll tell you how that happens here in a moment. But when there's things that get into the blood that don't belong in the blood, it becomes dirty. And when it's dirty, it will clog up. So you say, why would that happen? Well, clogging and clotting are protective. They are the manifestation of a protective response. So what the heck? Why would clotting and clogging be a protective response? Rebecca, can you guess why clotting and clogging would be a protective response?
I really don't know, Ben.
Okay.
I mean,
okay, good. That's fair enough.
There's something going wrong within the body that.
Well, why would that be a way that the body would protect itself? I'll tell you why. It'll make sense when I tell you. If there's stuff in the blood, you don't want it distributed, right? So
that makes total sense.
Of course, the body's logical. None of this is medicine and science and fancy doctorates and fancy degrees and offices and big shots and library books. It's just logic. When the blood is toxic, the body will clot it so it doesn't distribute it everywhere. So anytime the body senses duress or stress or toxicity or emergency, it will clot. So right away, we have a main mechanism for the stagnation of the blood: duress, emergency, dirtiness, some kind of toxicity that's getting into the system, wounding. Anything that represents something bad, generically, will cause clotting in the blood. So why do people have blood clots? Because there's bad stuff happening. We're under stress. We have inflammation. We're eating the wrong foods. I'll get you some more specifics here in a moment, but just generally speaking, because I like to simplify, I'm a pharmacist. Pharmacists always simplify things. And we want to really make this simple and easy to understand. You got good stuff in the body, you got bad stuff. You got good stuff going on in the body, you got bad stuff going on. Clotting is in the category of the bad stuff because it represents a way that the body is protecting itself. Wilhelm Reich, who was the famous, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Wilhelm Reich, but he's a famous physician, and he in the 1950s, and he ended up, oh, Kevin is on the call. Hi, Kevin. Kevin from Australia. So Wilhelm Reich talked about two major movements in biology: expansion and contraction. And he said the life force is associated with expansion. The death force is associated with contraction. To extrapolate this, when we're healthy, we're expanded, and when we're sick, we're contracted. Think of a little potato bug that you poke. When you poke the potato bug, it curls up. I think they're called potato bugs. Those little bugs that curl up when you poke them. That curling up is a fundamental movement in all of nature, and it is associated with sickness and disease. This curling up, this contractive response, is protective. And clotting of the blood is the blood's version of poking a potato bug, and it closes up. So immediately you have an answer, you have a strategy just by understanding this for preventing blood clots, and that's expanding the body, doing things that expand the body. And I'll tell you a few of those things here in a moment. Now, in terms of simplification, one of the most important ways to simplify health and diseases with something I call, and I know you all heard me say this a million times, you're probably getting sick of hearing it, but repetition's reinforcement, the triangle of disease. The triangle of disease are the 3 points of bodily breakdown that precede all chronic degenerative diseases. There's 3 points of biochemistry that break down, that lead to heart disease, that lead to autoimmune disease, that lead to dementias, that lead to movement disorders, that lead to cancer, that lead to skin issues, that lead to all of the diseases that we suffer, the chronic diseases. The reason this is important, well, first of all, I need to tell you, before I tell you the reason important, don't bother looking this up in a book, because I discovered this by seeing it. I didn't read about this, and it's not in any books. I noticed that when I was counseling people and working clinically with people, that no matter what people had, what kind of health challenges they had, there were always these 3 points underneath it. And then I started to delve into it, and I saw that these points were sequential. The first point led to the second point, led to the third point, and not only that, but there was a vicious spiral where the third point led back to the first point, to the second point, to the third point, back to the first point, back to the second point, back to the third point. It was a vicious downward spiral. We call that a negative feedback loop, where it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. The good news about well, there's bad news and there's good news. The bad news is if you do not address the triangle, you cannot address the cancer, the Alzheimer's, the Parkinson's, the multiple sclerosis, whatever the health challenge is that's chronic. If you don't address the triangle, you will fail. And this is what accounts for the failure of our medical model. Our medical model wants to treat above the triangle. It wants to treat the heart disease by just treating the heart, or by just treating the blood. It wants to treat the Parkinson's disease by just treating the brain. It wants to treat the multiple sclerosis by just treating the nerves. It wants to treat the arthritis by just treating the joints. The bad news is you can't do that without addressing the triangle. You'll fail. The good news is if you address the triangle, everything else will fall into place. And this involves a concept called sequelae. In medicine, they have a term, sequelae. In medicine, there's lots of Latin words. Not that anybody speaks Latin, but it just sounds good. Sequelae is like a sequel, like a movie, a sequel. A sequelae is a condition that occurs after a primary condition. Most of our chronic health challenges are sequelae. They're secondary. They're sequels to a primary breakdown that occurs at the 3 points of bodily breakdown. This is true about every health challenge. This simplifies our job as health coaches and as distributors of longevity, because now you only have 3 points. You don't have to worry about all of the different disease states, the 8,000 different diagnoses that people have. You just got to work at the triangle, the 3 points. It simplifies everything. And again, I discovered this just because I talked to so many people. And it's not anywhere written, there's no books, but it makes perfect sense. The 3 points of bodily breakdown are the digestive system, the blood sugar system, and the adrenal thyroid complex. I'll tell you what I mean here individually in a moment, but right now I just want you to understand these are the only 3 points you got to work on if you want to deal with chronic degenerative diseases, including blood clots and heart issues and vascular issues. So the first point is the digestive system, and for most people, the digestive system, especially people who are my age or in this anywhere from 50s, 60s, and 70s, even younger people too, but especially people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, because when we were born in the 1940s and 1950s and 1960s, it wasn't recognized how important bacteria were. And so many babies were born cesarean section, and many babies were born without, or were not breastfed after they were born, or were not breastfed long enough. And all these led to compromises at the level of the digestive system that occurred with babies as soon as they were born. Because when a baby's born and comes out of the birth canal, it's supposed to be bathed with these bacteria that from that point forward will go into the baby's nose and mouth and implant in the baby's digestive tract and become that baby's best friends. And not only become that baby's best health friends in general, but specifically in terms of digestion. That doesn't happen for a lot of babies. So for a lot of folks, especially people, as I say, over the age of 50, a compromise occurred at a young age at the level of the digestive system. The digestive system is the system that gets us energy, that processes foods to turn it into energy. When you have issues at the level of the digestive system at a young age, you will not process energy. You will not produce energy effectively from foods. This will throw off the blood sugar system, and the baby or the infant or the child will be dealing with bouts of low blood sugar. And every mother knows that babies get cranky when they have low blood sugar. So what mothers do is they give the baby sugar, which throws off the blood sugar even further. And there's complicated reasons for that. Basically, you get sugar in your system. A hormone called insulin comes out, pulls the sugar out of the blood. You go low blood sugar, you get more sugar. Insulin pulls the blood sugar out, you get more sugar, and on and on and on until the baby's 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and he's got issues with blood sugar, which persist the rest of that baby's life. Now, it gets even worse because blood sugar issues, once you have changes in blood sugar, that can feed back to the digestive system and cause bacteria, bad bacteria, to grow in the intestine. Now, you don't need to remember all the details. Just want you to see how these 3 points of bodily breakdown lead to everything else. So the digestive system gets messed up. That causes messes up the blood sugar system. Technically, a messed up blood sugar system is called dysglycemia. Not diabetes. Diabetes is a brand name. Rebecca won't let me say diabetes. I'm not allowed to say that because this is for educational purposes only, and we're not here to diagnose blah, 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 blah. So we say dysglycemia because the doctors own diabetes. That's a brand name, right? It's copyrighted. You can't say that, but we can say dysglycemia. Dys meaning messed up, glyce meaning sugar, emia meaning blood. Dysglycemia, messed up blood sugar. Messed up digestion leads to messed up blood sugar. When your blood sugar is messed up, this leads to changes in stress hormone, because high blood sugar is an emergency and it will cause a secretion of stress hormone, and low blood sugar is an emergency and it will cause a secretion of stress hormone. And so now your baby or your child or your young adult or your teenager who has a messed up digestive system, messed up blood sugar, and they're dealing with adrenal duress, adrenal stress. Once you have adrenal stress, chronic adrenal stress, eventually the thyroid will start to slow down. The adrenal glands and cortisol give you emergency energy for running from a tiger. Your thyroid gives you regular energy, and if you're always running from a tiger, eventually the thyroid will slow down to compensate, and that's called hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism slows everything down. So now you got a patient with messed up blood sugar, messed up digestive system, messed up blood sugar, hyperstress, jittery, and sluggish. Slow. The sluggishness feeds into the digestive system, and slows down the digestion, which throws off the blood sugar further, which throws off the adrenal thyroid complex further back to the digestive system. This is where this downward spiral comes from. Here's the point for our conversation tonight. Every one of those points on the triangle of disease, the messed up digestion, the dysglycemia, and the cortisol, the stress hormone, and the hypothyroidism, will slow down the circulation, will cause the blood to slow down. When the blood slows down, clotting is more likely. Why is clotting more likely when the blood slows down? Because the movement of blood, the circulation of blood, assures that blood cells will be spread out. When the blood slows, when the movement of blood slows, everything clumps up. The clumping up of blood is secondary to the sluggishness of the circulation. So let's talk about how all this works from an individual point. The digestive system is the key to everything. It's the first point on the triangle of disease for many reasons. First of all, that's where nutrients are absorbed. So if you have an issue at the level of the digestive system, you're going to be suffering from malnourishment. Even worse, once you have issues at the level of the digestive system, foods and nutrients can accumulate in the intestine, in the small intestine. You got two intestines. You got a small intestine, you got the large intestine. In the small intestine, you're not supposed to have a lot of bacteria. Yes, some, but most of the bacteria, the so-called probiotics, are in the large intestine. When everything slows down, either because you're eating the wrong foods, you have inflammation at the level of the intestine from gluten intolerance or dairy or eggs, or you're not producing enough stomach acid, or you're not making enough bile at the level of the liver, anything that compromises the health of the digestive system can cause bacteria to overgrow at the level of the intestine. And this is a major health issue that nobody's talking about, although it's just now starting to become recognized. But for many years, nobody talked about it, except for alternative practitioners. It's a condition called SIBO. I think we've talked about this in the past. Small intestine bacterial overgrowth. SIBO is the end result of changes in the movement of food through the digestive tract, lack of stomach acid, eating the wrong foods, food allergies, lots of processed foods, lots of sugar, malnutrition. All of these can cause bacteria to overgrow in the intestine. When bacteria overgrow in the intestine, they can cause inflammation. They can secrete inflammatory factors that will inflame the intestinal wall. That's called leaky gut. And that leads to the entrance of toxicity into the bloodstream. Entrance of toxicity into the bloodstream will immediately slow everything down. Like we said earlier, the blood's not supposed to distribute toxins. So once you have toxicity in the bloodstream, everything starts to slow down and clotting becomes more likely. So SIBO leads to poor diet, malnutrition, poor digestion upstream at the level of the stomach or at the level of the liver and the gallbladder, lead to accumulation of bacteria. You get a swelling of the intestinal wall. That's called leaky gut, and toxicity leaks into the bloodstream. That toxicity can cause blood to clot and cause stagnation in the blood. But there's more. Bacteria in the intestine make a chemical called histamine. You probably heard of histamine in terms of hay fever and allergies. But histamine is a major chemical that's made by all living things, including bacteria. Histamine can also cause blood to clot. So the SIBO, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, lead to leaky gut. Toxicity gets into the blood. The excess bacteria make histamine. That can leak into the blood and cause blood to clot. Then there is estrogen. Estrogen is made in the intestine, and estrogen, is processed not made in the intestine. It's processed in the intestine. It's detoxified in the intestine. Once you have SIBO, that's not going to occur as effectively, and your estrogen levels will start to rise, especially super powerful estrogen. And guess what? Estrogen is a major blood clotting hormone. So just from the SIBO alone at the level of the intestine, you've got leaky gut, leading to toxicities, toxins getting into the bloodstream, causing clotting. You've got histamine getting out into the bloodstream, causing clotting. And you've got changes in estrogen metabolism, causing clotting. That's just the gut. Then we move on to the blood sugar system. Sugar is a major clotting force. In fact, diabetes or dysglycemia, we'll say, and blood clotting go hand in hand. There's a chemical reaction that occurs between the blood vessels and sugar. And there's a chemical reaction that occurs between blood proteins and sugar. This chemical reaction is called glycation. And glycation will disrupt the flow of blood by causing cuts, little nicks and cuts at the level of the blood vessels, and by causing defects at the level of the protein in the blood. In fact, diabetics know that they have to get a glycation test for their blood. They call it a hemoglobin A1C test. You all heard probably of hemoglobin A1C. Hemoglobin A1C test is a test that diabetics get to see how fast their blood is glycating, because their hemoglobin, which is a protein in the blood, is glycating. So glycation also leads to sluggish blood, to damaged blood vessels, to a tendency to clot. Then we go to the third point on the triangle disease. Cortisol, and a stress hormone, is also induces blood clots. And hypothyroidism will also induce blood clots and slow down the movement of blood. And then we go back to the digestive system, SIBO, leaky gut, changes in estrogen, histamine release. Then we go back to the blood sugar system, back to the adrenal thyroid complex, back to the digestive system, and on it goes. What I'm trying to show you here is blood clotting, like everything else, blood diseases, like everything else, heart disease, like everything else, is substandard by these 3 points on the triangle of disease. So what do? Well, first of all, for the digestive system, you work on digestive health. Eating less food is one of the most important and beneficial health strategies anybody could use. One of the things that causes SIBO is a slowdown in the propulsion of food through the digestive tract. So food goes into your digestive tract, goes into the intestine, gets propelled. There's actually muscles, there are muscles that are connected to electromagnetic flow in the intestine that are called the migrating motor complex, the MMC. The MMC is this flow of electrical energy that is associated with muscular contractions that propels food through the intestine. One of the causes of SIBO is a sluggishness of the migrating motor complex. The migrating motor complex, when it gets sluggish, will cause constipation, and constipation is an epidemic. It's almost, look at all the commercials out there for laxatives and for fiber and for help eliminating drugs, prescription drugs that help eliminate the bowels. It's a major problem, largely or in many ways, because of a sluggishness in the movement of food. Well, what causes that sluggishness? There's a lot of things that cause the sluggishness. What nutritional deficiencies can cause that sluggishness, particularly deficiencies in a very, very underappreciated vitamin, which the Beyond Tangy Tangerine is packed in, which is thiamine, vitamin B1. Another major cause of this sluggishness is constant eating. The migrating motor complex is activated when we don't eat. When we eat, the migrating motor complex slows down so that we can absorb our food so it doesn't get propelled outside of us. So the more we eat, the slower our migrating motor complex is. Chronic feeding is a great way to shut down or slow down the migrating motor complex. In fact, you can actually hear the migrating motor complex with your ears. We call it a rumble in our tummy. A rumble in the tummy is the activation of the migrating motor complex, and it's doing its job, propelling food. But what do when we hear a rumble in our tummy? We eat. Exactly. Which is exactly what you don't want to do. By eating, you slow down the migrating motor complex. So just eating less or not eating is a great way to improve the propulsion, the elimination of food through the small intestine into the large intestine and out of the body. Another thing you can do to protect against SIBO is make sure that you're producing enough stomach acid. Stomach acid is antibacterial. It kills excess bacteria. So making sure you're using your noni juice or aloe vera juice or betaine HCl, which is in the ultimate enzyme. We'll talk about products here in a second, to promote acidity in the stomach. One of the worst things you could do if you have SIBO is get on Nexium or Prilosec. Which is ironic because one of the signs of SIBO is heartburn. So what do? We take Nexium, which makes the SIBO worse. And while it may suppress the acid, it causes more problems with the bacteria in the intestine. Another thing that can cause SIBO, lead to SIBO, is poor bile secretion. Or if you had God forbid, had a gallbladder taken out. If bile is also antibacterial and helps kill bacteria in the intestine, in the small intestine, excess bacteria. And then there are specific foods that feed SIBO, feed bacteria in the small intestine. This is where it gets very interesting because many of the signs of SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which leads to leaky gut, which leads to histamine release, which leads to changes in estrogen. Many of the symptoms of SIBO include things like joint pain, fibromyalgia, acne on the face, on the sides of the face, psoriasis, autoimmune diseases, belly aches. Many of the signs of SIBO mimic the signs of gluten intolerance. And so you'll have people come to you, and you may have said this yourself, well, I'm off of all gluten, but I still have my acne. I'm off of all gluten, but I still have my aches and pains. I'm off of all gluten, but I still have my psoriasis, not realizing that all of these problems are not gluten related. They're related to the SIBO. And just laying off gluten isn't going to help you. Which is why I always tell people to do a food diary, to see what foods are causing your specific symptomology. And it always helps before you do a food diary to fast. When you fast and then start eating again, you'll notice things more clearly. If you have symptoms, secondary, sequelae to the triangle of disease, you will notice these symptoms get worse when you eat the wrong foods or when you eat foods that feed the SIBO. There's a specific class of foods. Bacteria love sugar, by the way. They love sugar, which is why when you have a dysglycemia, your blood sugar is messed up, that can make SIBO worse. But there are sugars that are not sweet that can feed the SIBO. There's a class of sugars that are referred to as FODMAPs. You heard the term FODMAPs? This is a class of sugars that are fermentable. What does fermentable mean? They feed bacteria. FODMAP stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. All you need to know is you hear the word fermentable. That means it feeds bacteria. And guess what? Avocados and tomatoes and eggplant and pears and all kinds of cruciferous vegetables. And you'll say, but I'm eating organic, but I'm just eating vegetables, but I'm just eating salads. I'm not having any gluten, but I still have my problems, right? How many times have you guys heard this? It's because it's not the gluten, it's the bacteria. And the bacteria are thriving on the sugars, whether it's obviously the pastries, the cakes, the pies, and the sodas, and those kinds of things, but also the grains and the veggies and the fruits. All of these things are FODMAPs. And by the way, and I'm just going to say this because it's interesting, but it's a bit of a digression. Once you get really bad histamine, bacteria are really producing lots of histamine, and once you have lots of bacteria activating the immune system, because bacteria activate the immune system, those immune cells will hit a special cell in the body called a mast cell. And these mast cells will explode in response to the antibodies to the bacteria, and they will wreak havoc on the body because the mast cells make all kinds of inflammatory chemicals. And these are, when this happens, anything you eat will cause a reaction. Anything. And if you've ever heard somebody say to you, no matter what I eat, I get bloated. No matter what I eat, I get rashes. No matter what I eat, I get inflammation. No matter what I eat, my blood pressure changes. No matter what I eat, I have a problem. Those are people dealing with a condition called MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, which also follows SIBO. I just said that because I know some of you have probably heard people say I'm allergic to everything. Those are the people who are allergic to everything. And though, by the way, just as an aside, those are going to be people who are more sensitive to mold, more sensitive to hay fever allergies in the springtime, and more sensitive to various foods. So when you have somebody who's allergic to everything, SIBO. Then we go on to the second step, which is the dysglycemia, the blood sugar system. Sugar will clot the blood via this glycation mechanism. So making sure you're keeping your sugar under control is the second important step. And that, of course, the main thing to do for that is to stop eating the sweets and the sugars, and also the fermentable sugars as well. Easier said than done. More protein will naturally help you get off of sugar. More protein is a strategy for weaning yourself off of sugar, although protein also gets turned into sugar, but it gets turned into sugar slowly, much more slowly than regular sugar, than carbohydrates do. And then the third element is cortisol, stress hormone. And just by working with your SIBO and working with your dysglycemia, cortisol will begin to stabilize itself. Because the third point in the triangle of disease is sequelae. It's secondary to the second and the first. So just by taking care of the first and the second point, you're going to start, your cortisol will start to stabilize, but you can also do things to stabilize your cortisol through lifestyle strategies, relaxation, meditation, slow, deep breathing, activating the parasympathetic nervous system with warm baths, with gratitude, with just calming the body down. And that will in turn take care of the thyroid. By the way, you can't address the thyroid with iodine. That's not how it works. Yes, iodine is important for the thyroid, but unless you have major iodine deficiency causing a goiter, that's not going to save your thyroid. Working on your cortisol, your blood sugar, your digestive system will. And anybody who's hypothyroid knows that Synthroid isn't the answer, or drugs, thyroid hormone is not the answer, although thyroid hormone can give you a little more energy. What you got to do is you got to work on the cortisol, and you got to work on the sugar, and you got to work on the digestive system. If you work on all three levels, not only will you improve the blood supply, the blood movement, and the supply of blood to the cells, but you'll also improve all your other symptoms as well. And that's the beauty of the triangle of disease. And when I say working on all three levels, I'm not just talking about, and I'll talk about some longevity products in a minute, but I'm not just talking about the diet, and I'm not just talking about sugar, I'm not just talking about relaxation, I'm talking about things like exercise. I'm talking about things that improve the circulation. One of the big problems with DVT, for example, is people, one of the main ways people get DVT, I should say, is when they're sitting on a plane for 8 hours or 9 hours because the blood doesn't move. Well, you don't have to be sitting on a plane for 9 hours to get DVT. You just have a sedentary lifestyle. Obesity is another thing that can cause a DVT or blood clotting, because that also makes it difficult for the blood to circulate. So doing regular lifestyle things like moving your body, practicing slow, deep breathing, not sitting for long periods of time. Drinking more water is another thing that you could do. Water helps fluidize the blood. Fluidizing the blood is another strategy for preventing clotting. And then there's wonderful foods and spices that can have blood thinning effects. Garlic, for example, turmeric, pineapple and papaya have blood thinning benefits. Cinnamon has blood thinning benefits. Aloe has blood thinning benefits. All of these are wonderful ways that you can help improve circulation and allow the body to expand. Exercise, not sitting for long periods of time, slow, deep breathing, relaxation strategies, meditation, cayenne and garlic and aloe and turmeric and cinnamon. These are all great blood thinning foods and spices. And then we come to longevity products. There are wonderful longevity products for helping improve blood supply, for helping improve SIBO, for helping improve dysglycemia. Number one, obviously, digestive support. We have a great product that is so underappreciated, it breaks my heart. It's called I-26. I-26 is designed for SIBO. What does I-26 do? It kills the bad bacteria. That's its job. When I-26 first came out, SIBO wasn't really a thing, so they never called it SIBO, but that's what it does. It's your anti-SIBO longevity supplement. They call it hyperimmune egg. It's egg powder that comes from eggs, that comes from chickens that have produced antibodies to specific bacteria that they were inoculated with. Another very important strategy for keeping the longevity strategy for keeping the blood moving is enzymes. The digestive enzymes are one of the most important longevity products, the ultimate enzymes, one of the most important longevity products and one of the most cost-effective longevity products. Number one, ultimate enzymes will help you digest your food. That will make it less likely that food will sit around in the small intestine. But even better, when you take your ultimate enzymes on an empty stomach, they have and papain enzymes break up blood clots. And along the same lines, so does another enzyme called nattokinase, which you may have heard of, and you'll find that in the nightly essence, which I'll get to in a second here. So the ultimate enzymes, and I always want to do a little bit of aloe or noni juice with your ultimate enzymes to activate them. Ultimate enzymes, by the way, have bile, which will also help kill bacteria for SIBO, folks dealing with SIBO and support digestion. And then the nightly essence gives you probiotics, the good bacteria, to help balance out the bad bacteria, plus nattokinase. Now, folks who have SIBO, you want to be a little bit careful with probiotics. So you want to start very slowly with probiotics, and you want to make sure you're doing your other anti-SIBO strategies, like staying off the FODMAPs and making sure you're using apple cider vinegar and aloe vera with your ultimate enzymes and the bile salts from the ultimate enzymes, so you don't support bacterial overgrowth. If you're doing everything else correctly, you should be able to take the nightly essence probiotics slowly. Then, of course, the healthy blood sugar pack, because of the dysglycemia connection to blood clotting, to the anti-glycating, the chromium and vanadium, the sweeties, and the ultimate selenium, which I think is part of the blood sugar pack, very important for the production of selenium. Then the healthy brain and heart pack. Obviously, the heart is going to be involved in blood clot, protecting against blood clotting. Ultimate selenium is part of the healthy blood and heart, healthy brain and heart pack as well. And probably the most important longevity blood thinning supplement of all, anti-clotting supplement of all. I mean, everything else is going to help support blood supply by working on the causes of blood clotting and thick sludgy blood. But there's one longevity supplement that literally thins the blood. That's one of its main mechanisms of action. What is that, Becca? Do you know?
Niacin plus?
Not close, though. Very good. I was going to talk about that in a second. What?
Fatty acids.
What?
Essential fatty acids?
The ultimate EFAs, that'll do it too. Yes. And by the way, I was going to talk about that, but since you said that, yes, ultimate EFAs, absolutely. I was thinking, but they do a lot of other things. The Fucoid Z. Fucoid Z is an amazing blood thinner. That's one of its main mechanisms of action. Yes. And you raised a very good point. The Healthy Start Pack is a must for everything. Even though we're talking about digestive support and the healthy blood sugar pack and everything else, the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, the Ultimate EFAs, and the Osteomag those are the core of everything. So that goes without saying. I'm just giving you some specific ones for blood thinning. One really neat strategy. This is great for anybody who's got a blood clotting problem that is the end result of blood fats and cholesterol. By the way, blood fats are elevated when your blood sugar is elevated, and that will also predispose you to clotting. And cholesterol deposits in blood vessels are also secondary to dysglycemia, and also defects at the level of the blood vessels. So using chelation, that is magnetically attracting cholesterol and calcium and various toxins out of the blood, can support blood flow. Vitamin C is one of nature's most important chelating agents, and you'll find that, of course, in the Ultimate C. MSM the same way is a chelating agent, so you can use the Ultimate MSM. And then you brought up the niacin. Niacin has a wonderful blood fluidizing property. It's also a vasodilator, which will open up blood vessels, helping improve perfusion. And that's the Ultimate niacin. So you got lots and lots of strategies, including lifestyle strategies, dietary strategies, strategies for working at the level of the triangle, and then wonderful longevity products. Nobody should ever have a condition of dirty blood if they do everything correctly. And that means our fully allotted 120-year longevity lifespan, as Dr. Wallach likes to say. All right?
Wow. That's a lot.
That's a lot of stuff, huh?
That's a lot of stuff, Ben. And
okay, well, we got a few minutes for questions if anybody has any questions.
Oh, yes, we do have a few minutes for questions. And so I'm going to ask the first question.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I've got a 4-year-old little girl who has shellfish allergies and nut allergy.
And what kind of allergy?
Nuts,
shellfish. So shellfish and nuts are sources of histamine. So when somebody has a shellfish allergy or nut allergy, look to SIBO. Shellfish does not cause allergies. I shouldn't say that. The allergen in shellfish is histamine. And histamine itself is not going to cause a problem unless somebody has histamine overload. And histamine overload comes from the bacteria in the gut. So this is if you have a shellfish allergy, focus on SIBO. Likewise, nut allergies as well. And the nuts are a little bit different because there are things in nuts that people can become allergic to. But even then, it could very well be histamine overload. So see if she has other health challenges. Usually a 4-year-old girl, for a 4-year-old girl to have that kind of problem, it has to be pretty severe stuff. There has to be some pretty severe stuff going on.
Well, RSV is something that she got.
That could also be related to SIBO. So look at the gut. Look to see if she has a history of colic or colon problems or constipation or maybe diarrhea or loose stools, or she was breastfed. I would focus on digestive health with her.
Okay.
And stay away from the sugars, the FODMAP sugars.
The next question, and you had touched a little bit on the lymphatic system. So when somebody has swelling within their legs,
yes, is
that linked to the lymphatic system?
Same thing. Yes, same thing. But the lymph is part of the lymph and the blood are part of the circulatory system. The lymph and the blood are integrated. So when the blood becomes sluggish, fluids can leak out. Whether they leak out of the lymphatic vessels or they leak out of the blood vessels, which you're talking about whenever you have edema, any kind of edematous condition, swelling condition, the blood is not moving. It's not circulating. All the things we just talked about. That edema is one of the things that happens when the blood doesn't circulate like it should. Things leak. Now, leakage could also be caused by histamine. Histamine opens up blood vessels. Histamine causes porosity of blood vessels. So that's actually a mechanism so white blood cells can get to the various tissues. So porosity of the blood vessels can also lead to leakage, and that could be a histamine issue. It always boils down to the triangle.
So now if there's porosity in the vessels, does that go back to connective tissue breakdown?
It could be a connective tissue issue, but I would be guessing in order to have the most power to control the condition, I would look to the digestive system, the histamine release.
Okay. And then Adora out on YouTube asked, what can be done for edema swelling?
Movement, movement, or to get rid of things that are blocking movement. The most important thing for edematous swelling is to move the blood. That means exercise, deep breathing, relaxation. If you want to do the lifestyle things, the garlic and the bromelain, or the pineapple and the papaya and all the foods, the cinnamon and the turmeric, anything you do to keep the blood moving. Stagnation, blood stagnation is what causes the leakage. So keeping the blood moving, exercise. People don't have edema if they're moving. Athletes don't have edema unless they break a vessel. People who move don't have edema. Edema happens to people who are sedentary. Edema happens to people who are obese or aren't moving their body, or are elderly or frail and they're not able to move. Those are the people who get edema. So it's a lack of movement. It could also be caused by lack of movement through the kidneys, of blood through the kidneys. But it's a movement issue in general. Now, in addition to physically moving and slow, deep breathing and that kind of thing, also all the things we just talked about to prevent the things that cause the clotting or cause the sluggishness in the blood. And that, again, is the SIBO and the sugar and the cortisol and the thyroid. So if you want to do one thing, work on the intestine. You want to do two things, work on the intestine and the blood sugar system. You want to do three things, work on the intestine, the blood sugar system, and the adrenal glands. Calm the body down. But even just two things will make a huge difference for edematous issues. Edema, but let me be very clear. Edema is stagnation. The answer to stagnation is movement, not just physical movement, although that too, but also a biochemical movement, blood movement, fluid dynamics.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And Ruth Ellen has her hand up with a question. Pharmacist Ben, go ahead, Ruth Ellen, and unmute yourself.
Hi there.
Hi, Ruth Ellen.
Pharmacist Ben, hello. I have a question out on YouTube.
Yes, ma'am.
Casual conversation, would like to know what you think about the IUD. Yep.
Well, what do I think about it? Yes. First of all, my little girl was born on an IUD. Just so you know, when we did the sonogram, she was there, and there was the IUD right next to her. So it's not foolproof, first of all. And second of all, it does throw off hormone metabolism. You're sticking something in your body, and that can throw off the hormones. It's better than the pill. The birth control pill is one of those horrible medications there is, even though obviously it works for birth control. It's one of the most horrible medications you could take for metabolism, and an IUD is better than that. It's not great. You're sticking something in your body, but it's effective. What do you mean by what I think about it? I'm not sure how to answer that question. I don't think about it.
That's all it says is critical health.
Okay, gotcha. It is something in your body, and it's not clean. It's going to throw off your biochemistry, but it's better than the birth control pill. Although an IUD is not perfect. It's not perfect birth control. Neither is the pill, for that matter.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ruth Ellen. And we have another question that has to do with, because a lot of times you got edema in the legs, but how about in the arms? Is it anything different?
Most edema is in the legs, but it always happens in the extremities. Think about what's happening. The heart pumps, and it's got to propel all the fluids all through the body. And by the way, these days, and I believe this too, a lot of alternative practitioners say the heart is not actually a pump. It's actually electricity that moves. And I didn't even mention this. As the blood is circulating, it's generating electrical charges, and it could very well be these electrical charges are responsible for movement. So as the blood stagnates, those electrical charges start to drop, the blood will stagnate even more. And this is where you get this vicious downward spiral of blood stagnation leading to more blood stagnation, leading to more blood stagnation. So I didn't tell you about that. That's a very important way that cells get energized is through electrical currents that are produced as blood is circulating. And those electrical currents, which are referred to as a zeta potential, drop as the circulation of the blood starts to slow down. And I don't know, what was your question specifically?
Having to do with the edema in the
arms. Edema can happen. It usually happens in the legs because we don't move our legs as much as we move our arms. We're sedentary, we're still moving our arms, but it can happen anywhere. You can have edema in the arms too. It's where you have it in the extremities.
So here's a question. Would the stagnation of blood and then the lack of blood flowing through the heart like it's supposed to, would that cause an enlarged heart?
Enlarged heart is caused by the heart having to work harder to push the blood. It's like a muscle. The heart's a muscle. And what happens when you have an enlarged heart is the heart's working harder to propel the movement of blood. If the blood is sticky and sludgy, the heart has to work harder. So yes, that can absolutely lead to an enlarged heart, hypercoagulation or excess coagulation of the blood.
Gotcha. All right. And folks, if you're here live with us in the Zoom, you are more than welcome to raise your hand and ask questions. If you are on the phone and you would like to ask a question, use *9 to raise your hand, and then *9 again to lower your hand. And when we call upon you, you can use *6 to unmute, and we will allow you to unmute and ask questions. So we have just a few more moments here. Do we have any additional questions from the audience here? If you don't have them, I've got a lot of questions that we can go for. So here's kind of an add-on question in regards to the IUD that is not being used for prevention against pregnancy, but for progesterone to control endometrium.
Okay, so it's a delivery system for progesterone?
That is what I'm getting from the comments.
I'd never heard of an IUD that's a delivery system for progesterone, but her point's well taken. Estrogen is a growth hormone. It's a growth substance. Estrogen will cause hyperproliferation of tissue. Hyperproliferation of endometrial tissue causes a condition called endometriosis, which can be miserable, absolutely, positively miserable. One of the major reasons for excess levels of estrogen, there's a few, but one of the major reasons is SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So everybody who has female reproductive issues, not just endometriosis, but cysts and polyps and infertility and PMS and fibromyalgia, which is not exactly a reproductive issue, but it affects women, should think about SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. As I didn't talk about it as much as I should have, but maybe we can talk about it on another call. Estrogen is processed in the intestine by a complex of bacteria called the estrobolome. And when you have SIBO, that throws the whole estrogen processing system off, and estrogen levels can rise. And not just estrogen levels, but toxic, powerful estrogen. When toxic, powerful estrogen levels rise, by the way, these estrogens that are toxic and powerful are called catechoestrogens. And these catechoestrogens are responsible for many of the inflammatory conditions that affect women. You know, most chronic diseases affect women, not men, and largely because of estrogen, largely because of problems processing estrogen at the level of the intestine. Of course, there's also, these days, we have estrogens in plastics and in cosmetics and in preservatives and in perfumes and in various chemicals and in sandwich bags, sandwich wraps, and plastic wraps. There's estrogen everywhere, estrogen in the water supply. So that's another problem with excess estrogen. Estrogen is a very, 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 very powerful hormone that's not only processed in the intestine, but it's also processed in the liver. So you have fatty liver issues. That can throw off your estrogen metabolism. Estrogen requires bile for its elimination. If you have a gallbladder problem, or you have a liver problem, or you're not making enough bile for some reason, again, you're going to have an estrogen issue. So progesterone is helpful. I hadn't heard, I know they have estrogen or progesterone pellets. I didn't know there was an IUD that had progesterone, but progesterone is definitely a valuable hormone for folks who are dealing with excess estrogen or xenoestrogens. But really, you want to consider estrogen first as an intestinal issue and as a bowel issue and as a constipation issue, as well as a liver issue and a gallbladder issue, and also to a certain extent the stomach and the pancreas. But digestive.
Wow. Okay, and so AJ wants to know, Ben, why or what is the reason that you don't have 10 books?
You know, I've been writing. I write a lot, but I haven't figured out how to put it into a book yet. It's on the way. I do like to write. I have blogs, and I write articles and stuff like that, but I haven't figured out how to put it into a book. You want to help me write it, AJ? We can do it together, buddy. All right.
He's got double thumbs up.
All right.
All right.
We'll
And then
2 guys from Queens, or two guys from New York. All right.
There you go. And then Lee out on YouTube is asking, can Ben record a YouTube series on each of the hard sciences to start re-educating at the fundamental level? This is a way to infiltrate the medical model as their most receptive stage of doctoring. So, Ben, I think we've got a series to start.
Oh, we got a series. I know. All right, I'm up for it, Rebecca. It's on
All
you.
right.
All right.
We've got it. We've got it. Well,
all right. Thank you.
I know that we are at the top of the hour, just after the top of the hour.
And,
so,
you know, people can always call me. You know, they can reach out to us during the week. They don't have to wait a month. Rebecca's always accessible. I'm accessible. And Rebecca, we can do 3 ways, you know, if we ever need to. I'm happy to do that.
Absolutely. And we just got a hand up. So, Catherine, go ahead. Uh-oh, her hand went down. Where did she go? Go ahead and unmute yourself. Did you have a question you wanted to ask? Catherine? Nope, she's not coming unmuted.
I'm having problems with the thing right here. How you doing, everybody? It's good to be in this call. I just have one question. I am always wondering about using stuff that's not sugar. So I use stevia, and I don't know how healthy that is. And that's my
Stevia
question.
is probably your best choice if you want sweet. But stevia, non-caloric sweeteners like stevia, they'll throw off your blood sugar a little bit too. Just the sweet taste can do it. But if you have to pick a sweetener, an alternative sweetener, stevia is probably the best.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening.
What's that? I didn't hear that.
She said, thank you very much. She's
you're
enjoying.
welcome. My pleasure. And you know what? I should also mention this to Dr. Wallach will love this, I'm sure. Minerals, plant-derived minerals are wonderfully detoxifying for SIBO, for some of the toxins that are produced by these bacteria. Plant-derived minerals have great detoxifying properties.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, Rebecca, as always.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, everybody. God bless you all.
Our favorite pharmacist in the world.
I appreciate that. And so we'll talk next month.
Yes, we'll talk next month. Everybody, let's give it up for Pharmacist Ben Fuchs.
Thank you all.
Awesome.
I appreciate all you. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks for what you're doing.
All right. Thank you, Ben. And I just love the fact that Ben puts it into terms that we can understand.
If you can understand your toilet, you can understand your body.
There you go.
Okay.
The plumbing issue, folks. Bye for now, Ben. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Q&A with Pharmacist Ben. If I could get my co-hosts up with me, that'd be great, because I can't do this without them. I mean, they help me figure stuff out all the time, all hours of the day. And I just want to do a super thank you for my executive production manager, Ruth Ellen Sanchez, who is here and helping keep us organized and on task, because some people might have a little bit of ADD and too many things going on. And then we have the assistant to the executive production manager, AJ, who helps make sure that all of the different platforms are set up and ready. Ruth Ellen helps with that as well. And he is getting the information into the chats of the different platforms, making comments, adding in hashtags, and fielding questions. Just a lot of stuff that he does on the backside as well. And Marilyn, for those of you who are here live with us and you had that chat open, she does a superb job of transferring information and through dictation of what's being said by the speaker, whether it's Pharmacist Ben or Dr. Wallach himself, into the chat so that you can see it with your own eyes in black and white, and even get some of those things that's like, how did they spell that? She's got her down, but she does a fantastic job. So, and I know that we had Sherry here for a little bit, that she was helping let people in, but folks, we have an amazing community. We have amazing resources. And if you have any, even just a touch of desire to learn more, join our community. Get back with the person that shared this program with you. If there's nobody to thank, make sure that you get in contact with somebody on our team. You can find us at 855-949-3377 or through the Daily with Doc website using contact, and send us an email. Also, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at dailywithdoc.com. We do send out a weekly newsletter right now, getting ready to we've got a whole bundle of articles that are all set, ready to go, that we're getting ready to introduce. But we do send out the replays and descriptions of the previous week's programming so that you can easily share it with other people and do searches and find the things that you're looking for, so that you can help those, whether it's yourself, in your family, or in your community. And that's what we're here for, is to be a resource for the individuals and communities, so together we can help the world. My name is Becca Dukes. Thank you again for joining us here on Q&A with Pharmacist Ben. Thank you for joining us on Q&A with Pharmacist Ben. Have a fantastic day. I can't say night because some of you are in Australia and it's daytime. Bye for now.